as a community can do better.
What do you want to tell your children about this moment?
We need reforms.
From the All Indiana Podcast Network, we stand together.
Everybody's here together, black, white, brown, everybody.
A platform for progress in our community.
We need to do a better job.
I want to show that we can be peaceful.
This is just as much our fight as it is yours.
Discussing the problems of racial inequality and solutions to combat discrimination in a conversation for change.
We'll be able to build on this.
I never in a million years thought I would embrace a cop like that.
From Wish TV, we stand together.
So there are common struggles for communities who can relate to the experiences being much of this year's push for social justice.
Yeah, News 8's Alexis Rogers has how leaders in the Indigenous community say common struggles leads to bonding and coming together.
We are in a moment. That's what Carolina Castorino-Santana, executive director of the Indian American Center of Indiana, believes. A moment of realization, recognizing culture and difference, and figuring out how to combat different systems that are presenting obstacles for the community. It's a fight that Indigenous people know well.
Let's have a conversation about social justice and injustice. It's been a big conversation, especially within this last year. Where do Indigenous people fall within that conversation here in Indianapolis?
So what's interesting for a lot of people to know is that Indigenous people have actually been at the forefront of most social justice movements throughout the 20th and 21st centuries. So in the 70s, especially 60s and 70s, you saw a lot with the Red Power movement at the same time that the Black Panthers were gaining, a lot of notoriety for the work they were doing for their community. The Brown Berets and the Chicano community, the American Indian movement was doing that for Indigenous people. And, originally all of these groups worked together to achieve common goals. We're able to kind of show, how all of these stories, that intersection where you have a lot of immigrants who are not just Indigenous, but also Black immigrants. So that the Black experience is not just from a U.S. perspective, it's also from a third world perspective or a Latin American or African perspective. And so seeing how we can bridge all of those together, show that intersection, and really kind of unify we can actually see more progress on calls for equity and inclusion and just the human rights issue overall.
When we talk about people of color having equity in Indianapolis and in cities like it, why is that important for everyone involved?
It's to remind them that we are contemporary people of the present, still dealing with the same challenges we've been dealing with since colonialism, became a thing on our continent. And so that, I think that's really important to understand how other movements can see success also, because we are a symbol of survival and resiliency.
Let's talk about the work that's being done and why it's important that this conversation is transcending beyond the communities that it's impacting.
Social media has really had this really powerful impact in reaching communities, people who otherwise were closed off from diverse communities. And so, one thing I think of is with the mascot issue that has been building steam over the past few decades. A lot of people say, why is this a problem now? It's literally always been a problem for us. It's just that because of social media, you're actually getting to hear opinions and perspectives from people you're not normally in proximity to. And the same goes with everyone. Why do we see some of the mentalities that we do in more rural parts of our state? It's because they are not in proximity with people who are different from them. So what we're seeing now is there's a lot more collaboration across cultures. There's a lot more bringing, white folks who are looking to kind of combat the supremacy ideals that they've been raised with. And so they're coming on board wanting to learn more. And then we're able to take these communities who are highly impacted by racism and bigotry in our communities and come together and see where we can bridge that divide.
When we start to see and continue to see protests, often we see an Indigenous people presence. Talk to me about that.
Social justice is not simply demonstrations in the street. It's actually looking at those tangibles that are going to impact our community. I think if we look at, different types of statistics for marginalized communities, such as the Black community, the Latino community, and the Indigenous community, there's so much overlap. Obviously, there are areas where one community might experience something more severe than the other, but so many of our statistics are very similar. And so I think that's also a really important reason why oppressed communities need to come together. And there is a way to do that and still focus on our individual issues. We don't have to get lost in the drive for include collaboration. We can still, highlight what's going on in our own communities while working with one another. I think that that's something that's really important to remember is when we think about deaths by police officers. Native Americans actually have the highest rate of murder by police, but that's based on per capita. So why do we not hear about it as much? We're a smaller portion of the population. But it means that not only are we able to show solidarity with Black men and women who are losing their lives to state violence, we also understand what that looks like in our own communities. And this is where movements can learn from one another on how to bring that justice back to our own communities. But when you bring an Indigenous person in who can relate to the experience, who supports the movement that you are working on, you're actually showing where the common struggle is, and you're showing how we can bond together to move forward, and acknowledging that we are all affected by these same kind of systems of oppression.
Well, remember, you can also listen to our We Stand Together podcast anytime.
And you can see all of our We Stand Together profiles online right now at wishtv.com.
From Wish TV, we stand together. Watch, read, listen, and be a part of the conversation online at wishtv.com and when you follow Wish TV on Facebook. Find more episodes of We Stand Together and other podcasts from Wish TV online anytime at allindianapodcastnetwork.com. allindianapodcastnetwork.com.